So today, Michelle Miller and I, Kamala Gerard, will be talking about Generation Z. So what does it mean to be a generation? Well, classically, we talk about generations as being grouped by time. So we talk about the silent generation, the baby boomers, and you can see that these are chunked by periods of time. Actually, people who study generations say that a more accurate way of thinking about generations is looking at behaviors and ways of going through the world. So the generation that we're talking about is Generation Z. We can give it a rough idea of a time grouping. You can see at the bottom of the page there that Generation Z, also known as I generation, 9/11s and Centennials, were born somewhere around 1995 to the present. Many see this generation as being particularly more ethnically diverse. This is pretty significant, particularly as we think about how often we have conversations about diversity and the need for diversity. Some say that Generation Z actually will notice environments that are lacking diversity more than they will notice environments that are diverse. So we're looking at a population of people that are used to difference and probably more comfortable with it than any other generation before them. So we've heard of Generation Y, which if you wanted to go chronologically is the generation that preceded Generation Z. What are the things that make them different? Well, these are some key things that marketers are looking at as people in business are trying to understand how to target this audience. So for example, Generation Z might like subscribing to everything social, whereas Generation Y and Generation Z doesn't really want to be tracked at all. So you see things like Snapchat or more anonymous kinds of apps coming into play. Some other notable differences: Generation Y, going to college still seems like a logical path after high school. Some in Generation Z are starting to question the value. Is that really something that they need to do? What do they have in common? Well, many of them believe that their first job is not necessarily going to be their last job, quite different from the boomer generation. Both seek mentor relationships, believe that's important. You can have a look at some of these things on the slide. So there are some things that are in common. And remember, we're looking chronologically at two generations that are pretty closely linked. There are some differences, but there are some similarities. A big difference defining the generations that are emerging now is technology, and really the just abundance of technology. These are people that don't know a time when there wasn't technology. And when you talk about things like a phone, they're not just interested in something that you can pick up and have a phone conversation with, but phones are actually things that make possible video conversations. In schools, how do we understand the changing demands of the Gen Z student? These are kids that want something different. They're not interested in the sage on the stage who knows everything. They want more customized instruction. They expect that technology is going to be part of what you're comfortable with and using. Many of them want more flexibility in the school day. They don't understand why things can't be more customized, particularly as there's a lot of curriculum and resources moving online. These are kids who are beginning to question the typical paradigm of what a classroom looks like. They're also really interested in real-world applications. I can think back in my own years of being a math student and wondering how this was going to benefit me later in life. These are kids that are demanding answers. They're no longer as interested in memorizing facts that they can just look up or formulas that might just exist in the palm of their hand. Changing attitudes about school and work. The rising cost of college is a big factor for Gen Z. They're questioning the value of formal education over something that might be more experiential. This is impacting their choices for where they go after high school. Notice that some of them are considering maybe going into the workforce rather than going to college is a viable option. These are well-educated, thoughtful, good students who are starting to question whether college is the best place for them. So what do we know? Things are going to change. Education will change, or students will make it change, or it will become, in its current vision, will not be something that works for the Gen Z kids. Workplace workflow is going to change. Consumer habits are going to change. There's a lot of interesting research that's suggesting that many businesses will close because Generation Z just won't see the need anymore. Consider, for example, a grocery store as maybe something that is a relic of the past. It seems absurd to think that there might be a day we don't have grocery stores, but when Amazon is delivering things to your door within a couple of hours potentially, you can consider the impact this could have on business. So things are definitely going to change, not only in education, but pretty much everywhere.